This is Trade Alive with IUX, where markets come alive and trading gets real. Let's go live.
This podcast is brought to you by IUX Trading Platform, elevating your trading experience.
For the traditional investor, the financial market is a slow, methodical machine. They buy an asset, analyze the quarterly earnings, and patiently wait for years to see a return. But there is another arena, a high-speed, hyper-volatile battlefield where time is not measured in years or months, but in milliseconds. Welcome to the grueling world of day trading. In this environment, every single tick of the chart represents a critical mathematical decision. Millions of dollars of capital are aggressively allocated and systematically withdrawn in the blink of an eye. It is a relentless arena that instantly destroys the undisciplined and shatters the emotional. To survive here, you cannot rely on hope. You need absolute, unwavering precision. And no one embodied this precision more fiercely than a man known across Wall Street simply as the Pitbull. His name is Martin Schwartz. Unlike the legendary long-term fundamental investors, Schwartz didn't care about corporate balance sheets, and he didn't wait for the market to slowly realize a company's intrinsic value. Instead, he engineered a massive personal fortune by extracting capital from the market on a daily basis, utilizing ruthless technical precision. He didn't just claim to be the best, he proved it mathematically. He entered the highly prestigious U.S. Investing Championship and dominated the competition. He generated short-term returns so exceptionally high that they left traditional financial analysts completely speechless. But how did he achieve this? The mainstream media often paints day trading as a chaotic, unpredictable frenzy, but for Martin Schwartz, it was the exact opposite. He approached the financial markets with the rigorous, uncompromising mindset of a United States Marine. He proved to the world that navigating the micro-trends of the market is never about guessing the future. It's about strict structural risk management, calculated tactical execution, and military-grade discipline. Welcome to Trader's Journey, a part of Trade Alive, brought to you by IUX Education. In this episode, we're leaving the quiet world of long-term fundamentals behind and stepping directly into the crossfires of the daily charts. This is The Tactical Day Trader, how Martin Schwartz engineered a fortune with technical precision. Let's enter the battlefield. When we hear about legendary traders who generate massive daily returns, it is easy to assume that they were born with a supernatural instinct for the markets. But Martin Schwartz's origin story is completely different. Before he became the undisputed champion of day trading, he was a spectacular failure. For 10 agonizing years, Martin Schwartz consistently lost capital in the financial markets. But here's the fascinating part. He was not uneducated, and he was not careless. In fact, his professional career was built on high-level intelligence. He worked as an institutional fundamental analyst. His daily job was to completely dissect corporate balance sheets, analyze quarterly earnings reports, and project future cash flows. He was incredibly smart. He worked tirelessly, and he possessed a deep mathematical understanding of corporate valuation. So the critical question is, why did a brilliant financial analyst lose money for a decade? The answer is the most destructive force in the financial markets, the human ego. When a highly educated fundamental analyst calculates that a stock is undervalued, they build a psychological attachment to their analysis. If Schwartz bought a position based on perfect fundamental data, but the market price started to collapse, his ego would immediately take over. Instead of cutting his losses and protecting his capital, he would argue with the market. He would tell himself, "The market is acting irrationally. My spreadsheet is correct. The other investors just don't understand the true value of this company yet." He refused to accept the reality displayed on the screen. He held on to losing positions for months, absorbing massive financial damage simply to prove to the world that his fundamental analysis was right. His intelligence had become his absolute greatest enemy. It created a psychological prison that prevented him from seeing the truth. After 10 years of bleeding capital and fighting the market, Schwartz reached his absolute breaking point. The financial and emotional exhaustion finally shattered his ego. He had a profound, life-changing realization. The market does not care how smart you are. The market does not care where you went to school, and it certainly does not care how much time you spent building a fundamental model. The market is an uncompromising force of nature, and the only absolute truth in the market is price. He decided to wipe the slate entirely clean. He made a vow that would become the foundation of his entire career. I would rather be profitable than right. To survive, he threw away his fundamental reports. He stopped trying to predict what a company should be worth in 5 years, and he started focusing entirely on what the market was doing right now. He transitioned his entire methodology. He completely abandoned fundamental analysis and replaced it with strict, systematic technical analysis. He stopped listening to the news, and he started listening only to the charts. He transformed himself from an emotional analyst who desperately wanted to be right into a disciplined, tactical machine that only respected price action. The frustrated analyst was dead. The Pitbull was about to be unleashed. To completely rebuild his approach to the financial markets, Martin Schwartz had to look entirely outside the world of finance. He found his ultimate framework in his own past. Before his days as an analyst on Wall Street, Schwartz had served in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. In the military, survival is never based on hoping for the best possible outcome. It is based on strict operational protocols, extreme situational awareness, and absolute discipline. A Marine in a combat zone does not try to predict how the war will end 5 years from now. They react with absolute precision to the immediate environment unfolding right in front of them. Schwartz realized that navigating the financial markets was no different. He stopped acting like an economist trying to forecast the future, and he started acting like a tactical operator reacting to the present moment. To execute this new military mindset, he needed a completely different set of weapons. He fully embraced the mechanics of technical analysis. He utilized exponential moving averages to identify the immediate structural trend. He analyzed momentum divergence to spot hidden weaknesses in the market, and he meticulously read raw price action to find his precise entry points. But unlike amateur traders who mistakenly believe that charts are magical crystal balls that predict the future, Schwartz understood the true nature of technical analysis. He realized that a price chart is simply a visual, mathematical representation of human psychology. It measures the collective fear, panic, and greed of millions of market participants in real time. He wasn't trying to predict the market anymore. He was reading the emotional state of his opponents and systematically capitalizing on their irrational behavior. With his new tactical framework in place, he needed a battlefield that matched his intensity. Trading traditional corporate equities was too slow for his methodology, so he transitioned his capital into one of the most volatile and hyper-fast arenas in the global financial system, the S&P 500 futures market. This new arena provided the extreme liquidity and rapid price movements that his strategy demanded. In this new arena, he operated exactly like a special forces unit executing a surgical strike. His objective was clear-cut: enter the market when a high-probability technical setup appeared, extract a precise amount of capital, and completely withdraw his forces before the market closed. He refused to hold active positions overnight. He refused to leave his capital exposed to unpredictable global events or after-hours news while he slept. Every single morning, he started with a clean slate, and every single afternoon, he closed his portfolio completely flat. This relentless, high-speed extraction strategy required an iron will and extreme aggression. Once he locked on to a profitable trend, he never let go. It was here, in the trenches of the futures market, that the legend was born. The Pitbull was officially unleashed. In the high-speed arena of the S&P 500 futures market, Martin Schwartz was a completely different entity than the frustrated analyst he used to be. He had earned the title of Pitbull, and his execution was nothing short of ruthless. When his technical indicators aligned perfectly, when the moving averages crossed and the momentum divergence confirmed his thesis, he did not hesitate. He entered the market with massive volume and absolute supreme confidence. He struck the market like a predator. But his true genius was not in how he entered a position. It was in how he exited. The defining characteristic of the Pitbull was his uncompromising speed in cutting losses. If the price action deviated from his calculated technical setup by even a single millimeter, he did not wait. He did not hope for a reversal. He executed a stop-loss order and liquidated his position instantly. There were no excuses. There was no internal debate. By completely removing his ego, he mastered the art of the tactical retreat, ensuring that a small, manageable loss never compounded into a catastrophic portfolio failure. He engineered millions of dollars in consistent profits, but this aggressive methodology demanded a horrifying payment. Day trading massive amounts of capital on a minute-by-minute basis requires a human being to operate in a continuous state of hyper-alertness. For hours, every single day, his brain was flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. He was constantly monitoring global news feeds, processing rapid price fluctuations, and making split-second mathematical decisions that dictated the fate of millions of dollars. The financial market was absorbing his capital, but it was also absorbing his life force. The human body is simply not designed to sustain that level of extreme psychological intensity for years on end. The accumulated stress began to severely deteriorate his physical architecture. He suffered from chronic exhaustion and severe emotional burnout, but he refused to stop. He pushed his mind and his body to the absolute limit to maintain his championship performance, until his body finally fought back. The relentless pressure triggered a catastrophic medical emergency. Martin Schwartz developed a severe, life-threatening heart condition. He collapsed and found himself lying in a hospital bed, staring at a cardiac monitor, fighting simply to stay alive. The financial markets continued to trade outside his window, completely indifferent to his suffering. Lying in the intensive care unit, the Pitbull experienced his most profound realization. He was a master of structural risk management. He knew exactly how to use technical stop-loss orders to protect his financial portfolio from bleeding out. But he had fundamentally failed to place a stop-loss on his own physical health. He realized that the ultimate definition of a professional trader is not just someone who manages financial risk. A true professional must rigorously manage the physical and psychological risk of their own human machine. Because if you destroy your physical vessel in the pursuit of daily profits, there will be no one left to spend the fortune you have engineered. To truly understand the legend of the Pitbull, we must look beyond the millions of dollars he extracted from the S&P 500 futures market. We have to decode the internal architecture of his mind. How did a man who lost money for a decade transform into a dominant U.S. investing champion? The transformation was not about finding a secret technical indicator. It was a fundamental rewiring of his psychology. For years as an analyst, Schwartz's self-worth was deeply tied to being analytically correct, but the champion version of Martin Schwartz operated on a single, unbreakable philosophy: I would rather be profitable than right. He realized that the financial market is not a place to prove your intelligence to the world. When he entered a trade, he completely detached his ego from the outcome. If the market proved his technical setup wrong, his ego did not fight back. He accepted the new mathematical data, executed his stop loss, and immediately moved on. By separating his personal identity from his financial positions, he eliminated the emotional friction that destroys most day traders. This profound psychological detachment directly fueled his ultimate weapon in risk management, the tactical retreat. In the fast-paced, hyper-volatile world of day trading, taking consecutive losses is mathematically inevitable. When ordinary traders face a losing streak, their ego takes control. They engage in revenge trading, aggressively increasing their position size to violently win back their lost capital. This emotional reaction almost always leads to total portfolio destruction. But when Schwartz fell out of sync with the market rhythm, he acted exactly like a disciplined military commander facing heavy resistance. He ordered a tactical retreat. He would physically stand up, walk away from the glowing screens, and completely disengage from the battlefield. When he finally returned, he didn't attack with full force. He drastically reduced his position size. He traded microscopic amounts of capital until he mathematically re-established his rhythm. He knew that the market would always be there tomorrow, but only if he preserved his capital today. But this level of real-time, flawless execution is impossible without rigorous, obsessive preparation. The Pitbull did not simply wake up, turn on his monitors, and start reacting blindly to the market. He operated on a strict, military-grade preparation protocol. Long after the closing bell had rung, while other traders were relaxing or watching television, Schwartz was sitting alone in his office. He was manually calculating his moving averages. He was systematically mapping out the precise support and resistance levels for the next trading session. He visualized his battle plans, his exact entry triggers, and his strict exit routes before the enemy even arrived on the field. He knew that during the chaotic violence of the day trading, there is no time to think. There is only time to react. He deeply understood the old military doctrine: the more you sweat in preparation, the less you bleed in battle. When the opening bell finally rang the next morning, the Pitbull was never surprised. He wasn't guessing. He was simply executing a flawlessly prepared tactical operation.
Through his unrelenting tactical precision and military-grade discipline, Martin Schwartz didn't just survive the chaotic microtrends of the S&P 500 futures market, he completely conquered them. He transformed from a frustrated analyst who had bled capital for 10 agonizing years into a self-made multimillionaire. But he didn't stop there. To silence the critics of his methodology, he entered the U.S. Investing Championship, a highly public and fiercely competitive financial arena, and secured the championship title multiple times. He mathematically proved to the traditional Wall Street establishment that day trading is not a random, chaotic frenzy. He proved that when it is combined with strict technical analysis and military-grade structural risk management, day trading is a highly systematic method for engineering massive, consistent wealth. As we close the book on the Pitbull of Wall Street, I want you to confront your own trading psychology. Ask yourself a crucial question. Have you ever allowed your ego to destroy your portfolio? Have you ever stubbornly held on to a bleeding, losing position simply because you refused to admit that your initial analysis was wrong? If you had separated your ego from your capital and executed a tactical retreat like Martin Schwartz, how much capital could you have saved? Share your experiences and your battles with trading psychology in the comments below. Let's build a community of highly disciplined, tactical traders. If you are ready to stop arguing with the market and start mastering the charts, your next destination is the IUX website. We provide the professional-grade education you need to master technical analysis, precisely read real-time price action, and execute strict stop-loss protocols. Equip yourself with the strategic frameworks required to protect your capital and elevate your trading edge.
Thank you for joining us on the battlefield of the financial markets. This has been Trader's Journey, a part of Trade Alive, brought to you by IUX Education. Remember, the market does not care about your ego, it only respects your discipline. Until next time, stay tactical, respect your stop loss, and goodbye.
You've been listening to Trade Alive with IUX. Ready to put these insights into action? IUX is here to power your next winning trade.